welcome to the settlement. I'm Fen, and this is a review of the Pillar Survivor releases for Fade and Percival. These are like remastered releases. The actual content's been around for a long time. They've just had a update and a refresh to bring them closer to the more modern mechanics and also fix a few sort of issues and everything. Before we get into that, just a general kind of what's going on with the channel. Simple fact is, September and October have been very difficult times in respect to family. My father has been diagnosed with a serious illness. He's being treated, but it's very difficult to concentrate properly, especially given that because I'm quite ill myself, I can't travel to see him, so we don't have that, and he can't travel either. Also, last month, while my partner was out walking with my mother-in-law, walking our dog Pam, an off-leash cane Corso Labrador mix approached them aggressively. Pam barked, the dog attacked. Pam ended up having to have surgery. She's okay now, but it's been expensive, and that's added a lot of additional sort of monetary stress in a period where we really don't have a lot of money. So I've had to concentrate on doing things that generate money, and to put it very simply, YouTube isn't it. YouTube's terrible on that front, so that's kind of pushed it aside. And also Kingdoms Forlorn and the new expansion contents have eaten up a lot of my time. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a review out for the Pariah and the Red Witches until 2026, like maybe Q1, somewhere there. It's really difficult because the case with Nemesis Monsters is the level 3 version's buried quite far into the campaign, and as we don't have the first hero to allow for me to start in like Lantern Year 20 and try out the high level stuff more quickly, I have to go from start to finish in a campaign. And with these ones in particular, I can't just take one of my saved campaigns that's at, like, say, Lantern Year 10 and progress from that, because they're changing things quite a lot, especially the Pariah has a big impact from the moment he turns up on the timeline. I hate that I can't work on these things faster, but I don't want to just like fight the Pariah at level 1 and then trot out a review based on that. It doesn't seem right, and especially the Pariah and the Red Witches genuinely have a lot they're doing that's new, with the multi-opponent combat that is working in a different way to the Smog Singers, who are basically one enemy with 3 bodies. The Red Witches are 3 distinct individuals. And then the Pariah, of course, has a big change when you get to the level 3 fight, and you have to face him in the inverted fight. So I can't even assess how I feel about the Pariah as a whole until I've been through that more than once. Like, I kind of wish we had a vignette of that to just jump in and try it out as a part of the Pariah thing, but, you know, vignettes are expensive. Speaking of which, the Nucalope vignette will come out, a review will come out a bit earlier. I've already started to play with that. For a brief initial kind of impression, I don't think it's as good as the Killennium Butcher, but it's way better than the White Giggle Lion. So it's sort of in between them, closer to the Killennium Butcher, but the trouble with it is you're building off the Screaming Antelope, and the Screaming Antelope has a bunch of issues. This fixes some, but not all of them. I'm not sure if I'm completely satisfied with how it works yet. It's not like the Killennium Butcher where I'm like, wow, this has completely revolutionised the whole thing and it was really simple and clean. The Nucalope feels more messy in how it's trying to change the entire experience, but it does have some really neat stuff in it, and a bit of a promise that the nuclear cores in the Dragon King are going to get an update effectively in the way that I felt they should have. The new core in the Nucalope has 4 green affinities, 1 in each direction, making it a core. You know, you put it in the middle of the gear grid, making it a core, which that's pretty sweet. Anyway, that's enough of that. We're going to talk about these two now. So Fade and Percival are, well, the box is black because they're both dead. That's like a fundamental sort of part of this. They've died at different times, but we're more dealing with finding out about them after that's happened. So before I open the boxes, just a quick overview of who these two are. Fade is a member of the White Speaker Order. She breaks the rules and becomes pregnant and flees. You can see the little child there, stealing the Sword of Silence. And eventually she's tracked down and caught up by the Red Witches, but it seems Fade puts a very dangerous ritual circle around her, which the Red Witches are not willing to breach. We'll see that when the survivors encounter. You'll have a look at that in the card, but suffice to say, when you run into her, Fade is only recently passed away because her newborn is still alive. It's a nice little piece of storytelling. Originally, it was suggested we were going to have the Red Witches tie more closely to Fade with some kind of campaign, but that was decided to not be the thing, which is fair enough because playing like survivor types player units that take up 4 spaces on the board is a bit awkward. So it's a shame this happened, but it's understandable. Percival is very long dead. Percival's a member of the Blackguard, who were an order in the Citadel long before the Squires sort of became a thing. What's left in the Citadel is kind of a broken echo of the Blackguard. We don't know everything about Percival. We know that she was an instructor. We know that she went left on some kind of crusade and didn't make it. And we also know that she lost one hand. I think it's her left hand she lost. So that's kind of where they stand. The models have been here quite a while. I haven't had a chance to see if they've had a remaster. Looking at the artwork, I'm thinking that's not the case, but I've saved off on opening these digital boxes until this moment because it's really awkward to rebox things without resetting the whole room, and that ruins campaigns in progress, etc. But anyway, I have talked enough now about what they are. We'll begin by opening Fade and going through all the contents, so here we go. Okay, so here we have the model. It looks like it hasn't had much of an update to match the newer scale and size. We can see here she's depicted postpartum, that is post-birth, but yeah, her body hasn't reverted back to its original shape, so she still has a swollen belly. She's holding the Sword of Silence here. I believe in the physical copy there is a second copy of this sword. There used to be anyway. We can see her newborn child back there. It's a nice model. It's one of the ones that's very unique and unusual, even within the range of models. So I like it a lot, although it's looking like it hasn't had an update, and that does tend to make these kind of models not look as impressive on the field when compared to others. Less important for a model like this that you're not really using. So yeah, it's alright. It's pretty good. Now let's take a look at the other content. We've got a little install guide. Here we go. So this is a pillar card, which Campaigns of Death Volume 1. Reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't really know yet what's going to be in Campaigns of Death Volume 1 in full, so we can't say for sure. All we do have instead is this little additional setup. That's what we play with right now. So this is storytelling gets innovated, and then you add this pillar hunt event card here to the hunt deck. Thank you very much, Lantern. I accidentally clicked the M. Right, so this is the pillar card, which we can just sort of look at for the sake of seeing the artwork for now. We can see this is a pillar rank 1, and you can keep that as a reference sitting in your settlement folder if you run a settlement folder. Otherwise you could sort of write it in as a milestone. Little tricky here on the simulator. There's a lot of functionality missing from the settlement sheets. They're very awkward to try and update and change and add things to. They basically have no function. You don't have a blank settlement sheet to be able to alter things. So you end up having to note this somewhere on the sheet randomly. whatever space kind of works. I do appreciate the way the design is here, where it replaces the basic Hunt Event card. That keeps the size of the Hunt Event deck reasonable to ensure that it has the same chance of turning up as any other particular card. Here is the Hunt Event. Note that on the simulator, at least, it's got a matching back to all the other kind of hunt cards. You may not be so lucky in physical. It's got this up here to remind you this should not be in the deck at the start of the game. That's a really useful icon. I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate it's very brightly coloured. Baby the sword, the survivors find a woman's corpse riddled with arrows. The body rests in a central pattern drawn in blood. A screaming infant in one hand and a sword in the other. As the survivors approach, a massive worm bursts from the ground to block the way. So this is what I was talking about with that ritual. This is a harvester that she's summoned to protect. That's why the sword hasn't been recovered. That's why the child hasn't been taken away or shot either. Admittedly, a baby with arrows sticking out of it really would make it hard to justify anything about the Red Witches being anything other than the absolute worst. So, hey, bare minimum, they won't shoot a child. They will leave a child on its own to probably perish. What can you say? White Speakers are not the good guys, just like the Twilight Order are not the good guys. I don't know who the good guys are, there probably aren't any. Event Revealer must grab and dash. You have no choice over this. 1 to 2 you trigger the Harvester Hunt event, and then a 3 to 6 you get it and grab either the sword or you get +3 courage and the newborn. We'll look at the gear cards in a moment. On a 7+, you suffer 5 brain event damage, and you get the Sword of Silence, the newborn rare gear, and then you have to trigger the Harvester. And as you can see at the bottom, once this is resolved, it's going to go back and become a normal random basic hunt event, which is great. Not having it sit around in the deck forever was something I did anyway with the original version. I would just take it out after it's resolved because it didn't make a lot of sense otherwise. So of course we have the Harvester, a classic problem with the hunt phase, one of the great examples of the things that are wrong with it. This increases the chance you're going to encounter the Harvester, so you are even less likely to be able to play with noisy gear. You've got to bear that in mind. If this is in the deck, noisy gear is even more likely to result in the survivor dying. It is what it is. At this point it seems Team Death are thoroughly committed to the Harvester of being a thing that checks and balances a part of the game that doesn't need a check and balance. I'm never going to stop complaining about that. I'm sorry. The instruments are some of my favourite parts of the game, and I hate that I have to go to house rules or use the Grim Muffler from Winter Solstice Lucy to be able... I think it's Winter Solstice Lucy. Anyway, I have to use that to be able to play with instruments. I think it's a real shame. But anyway, yeah, Harvester. You know how the Harvester works. If you don't have noisy gear, which you shouldn't because it's the hunt phase and you shouldn't have it, effectively you're paying a survival or dying. So that's something to bear in mind. Once you innovate storytelling, you really cannot risk Coprolalia survivors or anything else like that at all, because suddenly the odds of the Harvester turning up have gone up significantly. Yeah, this is like a 1 to 2 and a 7+. That's a huge portion of this particular event. Our 2 pieces of gear are the Sword of Silence and the Newborn. This is one of the things I actually kind of really like, because the Sword of Silence is very clearly better most of the time, because the Newborn is specifically a detrimental thing. The Sword of Silence has positives and negatives, but there's a real role-playing, like emergent game-playing, almost fourth wall kind of thinking, where you're being told, do you want Sword of Silence or do you want the Courage and the Newborn? And, what kind of survivors are you playing? What kind of settlement you're playing? I would be hard pushed if I was playing Protect the Young to pass up on rescuing this Newborn, which... it's nice to have these opportunities to roleplay express your settlements a little bit more. So, first of all, Sword of Silence. It's got 3 decent affinities, up red, left blue, right green. The left blue is the best one of these by far. It connects to more things. Right green isn't as good as left green, and up red isn't as good as left or right red. So, yeah, it's nice to have these affinities. The fact that they're not optimal doesn't matter so much when the weapon itself is good, which it is. It's weapon, melee, sword, other, so saviors can't use it. It's sentient, irreplaceable, and unique. So one of these per settlement. If you lose, if the survivor holding it dies, then boom, it's gone. Goodbye. Sentient means you need to have at least 3 insanity, be insane to be able to wield it. And again, sharp if you have 6+ understanding, which is a nice touch. When you have this in settlement, no white speaker, no white secret, that's really interesting and cool in itself because it's a thematic thing. It's also a very real price to pay. And if you want to start getting white secret again, which is very good, and if you want to get white speakers, which could be very good, you do have to figure out how to get rid of this sword, which isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world. Because effectively someone has to die to lose it most of the time. Its attack profile is 2, speed 5+, 6. Solid. Like, you get this early on, that can be very potent. It's a little harder to get super early these days because of the storytelling requirement to get it into the deck in the first place. But having storytelling be a bit more important is also interesting, although then the Sword of Silence, if you take it, has additional impacts on storytelling because white speakers are going to shun your settlement for this. I will say it's kind of a little interesting that this doesn't have any links to the white speaker sword hunter, because this is, this is one of her swords, one of her collection of swords, I believe. I think that's right. And that white box doesn't have any specific interactions with it at all, which is a little bit of a shame, but it is what it is. This is still an interesting sword. Then we've got the newborn, so we're getting 3 courage in addition with that. However, and this is a weird one, but gaining bold during the hunt phase is probably one of the worst places you could get bold, so I think this is nice to +3 courage to gain progression towards see the truth, which is the max courage, but I'm not so thrilled about achieving 3 courage on the hunt, because bold, you can see here, gives you prepared. Prepared is not great. I mean, when we compare it to stalwart, no knockdown, brain trauma, intimidate, that's fantastic. Matchmaker, even better. We don't really want hunt phase triumph rolls. Even this table, if we look, it just isn't better than what we're getting here. It's better than the showdown phase triumph. Movement is a really good stat, but it's identical to settlement phase triumph. So, to be brutally honest, that's the one I want the most. That's the second, and this is the third. So that extra courage is not. It's thematically appropriate, but I would be trying to add it to a survivor who already has triggered bold, and they're moving towards see the truth. And as a reminder, see the truth, you usually want to have a Dridocanthus or some other way of ignoring a severe injury in your gear grid because it does cause blind. Beyond that, we've got some nice thematic additions to this. It's an item, it's heavy, it's fragile, so you could rescue this and then the hunt phase could take it away from you. This poor bab could just, they're heavy, they're fragile. There are hunt events that archive heavy, fragile pieces of gear. That's really grim to talk about. Irreplaceable, so if the person carrying it perishes, this does as well. All your weapons gain slow, something to think about. And then when you get to the settlement, you get +1 population. So, I mean, it's super interesting because both of these have benefits and downsides. An additional +1 population can be quite helpful for settlements. And that may be something you really desperately need at the time, but you need to take this and you need to survive and not have anything bad happen to the child. And you need to fit in your gear grid. The Sword of Silence is strictly better, but it comes with long-term downsides, even at the point where it's not useful anymore, which, I mean, if you're managing to get to 6+ understanding, it remains useful for a long, long time. but still, it's interesting. I do think this is decent. I like this. I think on the simulator, it's so cheap to pick up that you may as well. In physical, you got to think of shipping and everything. You might want to bundle it in with other stuff. This is fairly good. It's got some nice storytelling. It's got some nice world building, and I think it's been better balanced. Let's just move all of this out of the way now, because previously, if you hit this really early, it would give you the Sword of Silence very, very early on, and that was particularly powerful. So they put a good little gate in on it. Now it's time for Percival. So let's open that up and take a look. So here we have the Percival model. Again, you can see clearly this is not upscaled to match the new sort of designs. In fact, we've even seen a pin-up version of Percival who doesn't look that much like this character, but the race of the Black Knight has given us a place where using this character as a proxy for one that's wearing, I think it's Marchioness armor is the one. This works. That's kind of what she's wearing here. It is a beloved miniature for very good reasons. It's a fantastically done armor set. It's even skipped on ye dreaded boob plate. This is like very stylized armor, but it is also looks quite sort of practical. We've got quilted padding on the bottom to protect the legs. We've got sensible armor everywhere. A helm that's stylized and it's going to be a nightmare to look out of, but they're fantasy, you gotta accept some things. So this model has more use now than it did before, and it's one of the greats from the very first sort of earlier stuff that was in the game. So I think it's fantastic. We have our install guide again, so it's very similar, but the trigger point this time is you add this onto Lantern Year 13 on the timeline. Again, as I noted before, there are issues with doing that on the simulator. To be brutally honest, I just write Percival on Year 13 or just Dead Warrior. Then we have our pillar card, which currently doesn't have any major use. We can see again, I think this is seems to be pillar 1. So we'll learn more about how that works. This is in particular lovely. Can we just get it to there we are, because we get a little depiction of there's Percival on the right instructing these Blackguard in how they in Blackguard style, drill sergeant style, and we can see there look at that good little boy. There he is. I say boy, it could well be a girl, but this good little dog here. This is the Black Knight before everything went wrong. It's a very tragic story, although there's a question with this, and we'll talk about it in a moment. It's made the sort of lore feel a bit wobbly. I'm not really sure what's going on, whereas before it made sense. But in order to explain that, let's take a look at the hunt event. So this will go into your hunt deck in Lantern Year 13. It replaces a basic one. Once it's resolved, it will go away again, and it is Dead Warrior. The hunting party stops several paces away from a one-handed skeleton clad in ancient rusted armour. A strange tablet covered in inscriptions lies next to it. If the settlement has pictograph, a survivor with 3+ understanding may investigate. If no one investigates, roll a random hunt event. So this is one of those things where pictograph has a lot of hidden benefits. Itself as a innovation is not great. It's decidedly okay. It has some uses, but on the whole it's as bad as the very thing it is copying, which is the Warhammer Quest flea table. But this hidden part where you gain access to other things on the hunt phase and elsewhere, that's the real payoff for pictograph. Key thing to note, like if you don't have pictograph, the way this seems to be worded is it'll resolve and get replaced because it puts a random hunt event if you don't investigate. So you're encouraged to have pictograph in your settlement by level Lantern Year 13, which that's an interesting little wrinkle, and I think that's kind of cool. Okay, on a 1 to 2 on our investigate, and this is an investigate, so remember that bonus is to investigate can help avoid this. You sense extreme danger, warning the others everyone flees to safety. If you have a shattered jaw, a garbled warning falls on deaf ears, and all survivors are hacked to death by an unseen force. So, a couple of notes on this one. First of all, why is the one with the shattered jaw also dying? I would have liked them to flee at least. I don't want this happening at all. This is like possibly a campaign ending situation. So you do not take survivors with shattered jaws out. Full parties of shattered jaws. You never investigate this with a shattered jaw full stop. Like, it's not worth it. On a 3+, you learn from the tablet and gain the Blackguard style secret fighting art. We'll look at that in a moment. If any survivor in the hunting party has the honourable disorder, the group respectfully moves past the skeleton. Otherwise, gain 1 skull basic resource because you pinch Percival's skull and turn it into a necklace. And we know this is definitely Percival because not only is wearing Blackguard and teaches Blackguard's style, as we can see in the pillar art, but also this whole extreme danger. So this is the bit I want to talk about for a moment. Previously, the understood thing of what this extreme danger, this unseen force hacking to death, is the Black Knight. And that would make sense because the Black Knight, the Black Knight lost Percival. Percival left and never came back, and the Black Knight stayed in the Citadel and grew larger and more monstrous and more intelligent, but never really fully reached human-like sapience. It's still quite animalistic. You can see that in how it fights. It often employs the sword as a big club instead of actually using it as a thrusting, double-bladed slashing weapon. It just tends to smack things with it like a club. So it just, I have a little bit of trouble, and I would love for an explanation to come from Team Death, from Adam Poots Games, as to what it is that's actually attacking, and if it is the Black Knight, why the body is still being left there. It's just lying out in the middle of nowhere. And it's also, it's interesting in trying to figure out what circumstances caused Percival to be left here along with her instruction tablet. That's something that's quite hard to kind of reconcile, because we know she left the Citadel on some kind of, we'll call it a crusade, it might not be a crusade, but some kind of mission, and most of the Blackguards went with them, and it seems like just some squires were left behind, or perhaps no one was left behind, and the squires are survivors who kind of drifted into the place and are playing at being squires. We don't know that part for sure. We don't have good enough information. But it's like, so she died, and she's not given a cairn, she's not given a grave, she's just left there. So that suggests she died in a situation where everyone else was forced to flee for some reason. Maybe a pitched battle, maybe they were attacked by something. But then the question is, why does she have the pictograph of instructions for Blackguard? I don't know. Why would she head out with the combat instructions on a crusade with a bunch of people who should be trained in Blackguard style already? It's a question, and it's like, well, then again, if we look past all of that, why is her body still left there if this is the Black Knight that hacks everyone to death? Or is it Percival's spectre? We don't really have much indication of ghosts beyond like the wailing smoke, so we don't know. And that's the thing. It's like, previously it felt quite coherent, and if this was in a tomb of some kind and they desecrated the tomb, that would make sense as well. But it's interesting. It's really overanalyzing the whole thing, and when you think about it too much, it sort of starts to fall apart. But it's kind of, it's an interesting look into the past of the Citadel, and then it's a load of questions about it. But Anyway, I've spent too much time with this card, I've spent too much time thinking about this card. Let's get on to the Secret Fighting Art, which drips with flavour. Blackguard style, Secret Fighting Art and Percival. Swords in your gear grid gain Deflect 1. Deflect 1 is a better version of Block 1, so that's really good. When you block or deflect a hit with a sword, your next attack that round with a sword gains +2 accuracy, +2 strength, +2 speed, and ignores first strike. Limit once per round. Good to limit it once per round. And then during the settlement phase, you may spend and endeavour to train a survivor. They gain the Blackguard style Secret Fighting Art. You lose it and suffer the broken arm severe injury. So when you get this, even if you get it on a survivor who doesn't use swords, you can get it to that survivor who uses swords, which is pretty cool. Broken arm, that can be fixed with bed as well, so this isn't a major problem to pass it on. It also has the interesting situation of you can have a generations of sword users, and once the parent has reached like retirement age, they can pass it on to the next member in the family, passing the tradition down. I also really like the broken arm severe injury because it kind of tells a story about how Percival lost her hand, because the suggestion is that when you're training people in Blackguard style, it's quite likely you will get injured in instructing. So possibly Percival lost her hand while training others rather than actually in combat, and I think that's all really interesting and fun. Percival being one-armed as well is a nice reference to Guts from Berserk, so yeah. Swords aren't my favourite weapon type. They get a lot of love from Team Death, but also inexplicably katanas are not classified as swords, so normally I'm not super excited about using swords. I think they're dependable. I think they have a nice weapon specialization, but their mastery is kind of whatever. But things like stuff like Regalism in the Gambler's Chest completely changes that for me, and this, because it's a Secret Fighting Art, also supports Regalism. So there is a nice little package of, you could do a lot of things with swords and have a lot of interesting things going on, and this is a good support to that. So I think this is a decent purchase. I think on the simulator it's a no-brainer. I think in physical, you gotta always consider shipping and taxes and customs and all of that. But it's not bad. Especially if you are in a region which has a warehouse, so you have to worry less about customs and get lower shipping. But yeah, it's gotten better over time, this one. This version of the card with a few updates and an improved layout is the best version of the card there could be. And all we're really left to see is how Pillars work in Campaigns of Death Volume 1, like properly see the whole system, and how adding these cards in is going to impact that. At the moment, you get to encounter this every campaign Lantern Year 13 if you want to. That's sweet. But once we have Pillars in the mix, who knows where that's going to go. So that's Percival. And let's just grab her. Here's Fade. In my opinion, I think Fade is still the slightly better of the two contents, but Percival has gotten stronger over time and is fantastic in combination with the philosophy of Regalism from the Gambler's Chest. I can't see any reason to not pick these up on the simulator, and if you've got the budget for it in physical, I think they do add things to your game. Especially if you play multiple times a week or at least once a week and this is your main lifestyle game. So there we are, that's it. I have talked about these guys. Hey, we're going to be under 30 minutes. Incredible. I've not managed to fill the time with absolutely pointless waffle until right now. But anyway, that is these. As for the future, I will be back with some more Dark Bestiaries. I'm going to try and record another one this week to put up later this month, hopefully. I've got most of the notes together for it. And there's a big update for the simulator landing on the 28th of November. So it's I'll just let's see if I can just read that on the launcher right now or not, because it's an exciting thing to see. Yeah. Game servers offline for scheduled maintenance Friday 28th of November. A new game version resetting all dwellings due to feature updates. That's really exciting. All dwellers are urged to back up any ongoing campaigns using the Stone, Cloud and iClop's camera features. So very exciting to have that kind of update noted. That is more of a warning compared to normal updates. So we'll see. Hopefully it's really exciting and it's stuff I can talk about in the first week of December. And the written front, this should be going up onto the YouTube channel either Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not committing to releasing every Wednesday anymore because on a Wednesday anymore, because it's actually really awkward for me to get everything done in time for Wednesday with how my life kind of works out. So I think Thursdays, Fridays, you might start seeing these uploads appearing at that time because it may well be easier, give me more flexibility. Friday is going to be a written article covering as much as I can ahead of the Black Friday 2025 release. It'll be like up there for everyone to see. It's going to be my thoughts on basically on all of the expansions, my thoughts on how the Gambler's Chest impacts things and what you need to decide to do with that, because it's kind of a branching path, fork in the road for your game experience, where suddenly instead of having Kingdom Death, you've got two versions of Kingdom Death that sort of sit together in the same box. And the best ofs, the white boxes and things that, recommendations from me of stuff I've really enjoyed playing with that I think you should pick up. So you can look forward to that arriving either in 2 days or a day or so. As I said, it'll be free, released to all, because I try and do that with my reviews and these kind of things. I leave the deep dive stuff and other things for patrons instead, to say thank you to them. And as always, thank you to the pillar patrons who support this. Without your support, there would be no reason for me to do these videos at all. They like Kingdom Death is not a popular subject for advertisers for obvious reasons. So I appreciate all of that. And if you do pick these up, I hope you have as much fun with them as I have had over the years. And thanks for watching.